What up, everybody? Welcome to the IAG Thursday Thing. This thing that we do every Thursday where we hang out and talk about topics or talk to people or just kind of catch up on what's going on. And hopefully you were mildly entertained and might accidentally learn something. That's always a bonus. Today, we've actually got a pretty cool guest on. This is somebody I've wanted to talk to for a long time. I've talked to him on the internet a bunch, whether it's talking with him, talking at him, arguing with him arguing with me, all sorts of fun stuff. He is famous and infamous within the community, a lot like myself, which is really awesome. And but honestly, big awesome community member, and we're really excited to have him on. We have Rick from DRP, Dirty Racing Products. Rick Wilson from DRP. Rick, how you doing, man?
Good, man. Enjoying some nice warm winter weather down here in Florida and living the life.
I heard you guys were going to get into like the 80s this weekend or whatever.
No, it is. It's crazy. It was like in the 20s last week, and this week, which, you know, we all like die in Florida when it gets that cold. And then, I think it's like mid 70s today, and this weekend's looking like the 80s.
Whatever, dude. If you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes. Or warranties up in Chicago dying.
I'm having a great time. It's 39 degrees outside. It might as well be summer.
Yeah, like I'm excited because it's 60 out here in Tennessee. So we're all over the place. So Warranty's also on with us. My partner in crime. Nice to see you, buddy. These interviews are a good time and are always better with more people. So
sure.
Awesome. Well, let's kind of get to it. Rick, who the hell are you? Who do you work for? What business do you own? What do you do?
Oh, well, I'm Rick Wilson, Dirty Racing Products. I'm the owner of the company. I've been that for the last 12 years, and before that, I guess I was a member of the United States Navy for most of my life.
I had no idea you were a squid.
Oh, yeah. I was an aviation squid, though, so I was on the right side of the boat there.
And that's fine.
But yeah, I mean, we've been building and, racing Subarus since about 2000. Well, we've been building Subarus and working on Subarus since about 2012 timeframe, racing them before that. We started... DRP kind of started as a race team that got out of hand and quickly turned into a shop. And so now we build, not just Subarus. I guess Subarus is probably 90% of what we do, but we build, maintain, do regular maintenance on Subarus, do custom tuning, from motor builds and track cars and track prep and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, we're also kind of known for doing some GTR stuff and some Corvette stuff and lots of fun things.
Yeah, you guys have been messing with all sorts of stuff, and you've done just about, every discipline of racing for the most part with Subarus. I mean, you guys started as a rally team, correct?
Yeah. So we started as a basically, I guess what you call a pro rally team in the United States. While I was in the Navy overseas, my dad, who was actually never into cars, which was interesting, started really getting into rally racing out in California, because I'm from Los Angeles originally. So that's where they're still at. And there's a really cool grassroots rally scene out there called the California Rally Series, which, funny enough, is not limited to California, but that's what they call it. So we were racing two-wheel drive cars out there for a long time, primarily the like early 90s Ford Escort GTs that had the Mazda Miata motor and stuff in them. So we had a few of those that we raced. And, as my dad got a little older, kind of like towards the last few years of what he thought we could do, time he could spend rally racing, we decided to go ahead and go into open class all-wheel drive with a Subaru and kind of go out on the highest level. We bought a Hawkeye full rally car that was already built and prepped, had never been raced yet, in California with our team at the time out there. His name's Tom Lang and Langworks and those guys. And we started racing that car in that same series. And then I was still out here in Florida. I was flying out to meet him all the time, flying out to all the events. It didn't take long of doing that we decided, I wanted my own Subaru. So I bought one out here. So I bought a Subaru WRX out here. I bought a 2004 WRX that was basically a stance car shell. It was bright orange with gold pearl flaked and really bad.
What year is this?
This was
ish.
13, 12,
okay.
13.
Okay. So just a few years later.
Yeah. So I bought that car and then started building it out here. And then we started looking at doing some East Coast races. No, I guess this would be before 13 because I didn't have the shop yet. So maybe it's like 2011. And we wanted to start doing some of at the time, what was Rally America, which doesn't exist anymore, right? And do the East Coast races out here. And I got to looking for support out here for the car, and there was none. I couldn't find anybody in the Southeast with rally experience, for one, and then two, like what I would consider quality Subaru, knowledge or know-how back then. That's what kind of led to, DRP. Like we had started building like some custom parts for cross tracks and stuff when they started coming out, and that's really the start of what is Dirty Racing Products.
Yeah.
And when I couldn't find somebody out here to help support the car, kind of at the same time that happened, we landed on a property not far from my house for a really good price with the shop on it. And we bought the property, and I hired the first person that I could find that was a Subaru tech at the time. And we started, DRP was started in 2012. And that's where it came from.
Well, there it is. And then it just started rolling from there. So what most of the people in the Subaru community know you for, at least on the performance turbo side of stuff, because I actually remember you guys making cross-track parts. Yep. But what most of the people on the performance side know you for is the drag program that you guys had. The Patriot that's kind of an iconic drag car in the community. What led you down to, a rally to drag racing seems like a big jump.
So yeah, basically, we raced the other Patriot STI rally car for 2 to 3, I guess 3 years. We ran 6 to 7 events a year. We're traveling all over the country. It was a lot of fun.
Yep.
We were at Gorman Ridge Rally. It was either Gorman Ridge I think it was Gorman Ridge or Fraser Hill Climb, but I think it was Gorman Ridge Rally in 2014-15 timeframe. And we had a really bad off. My dad was driving, I was co-driving. And we had a really bad off that was the kind of off that could have killed both of us. Fortunately,
the one that scares the shit out of you.
Yeah. Off. Let's put it this way. We were pinned in 6th gear when we left the road.
Woo, man.
Yeah. Damn. And fortunately, everything kind of came out okay. And in fact, we actually escaped this with that actually very minimal damage even to the car, let alone us.
Yeah.
But it was kind of an eye-opening experience. My dad at the time was 60 plus.
Yep. And,
at the time I was, I don't know, mid to late 30s, I guess. And, I might have walked away from a bad roll or a bad crash, but we're kind of like, at 60 something years old, you may not.
Yeah.
We finished that rally. We kind of just took it easy through the last few stages and finished that rally and kind of really took stock after that event of whether we were going to continue to do that anymore. We were already a couple of years into the shop at this point. So that was kind of like the last time that we raced rally. Well, I had my 2004 WRX out in Florida that I was racing in Rally Cross, which was the other Patriot. So I was racing in Rally Cross. And of course, with the Subaru shop out here in Florida, there's no rally out here. There really isn't. Nobody really cares about rally. I was winning all the championships I could win with Rally X, which is half participation trophy, right?
Yep.
And we started looking for more power in the car and going faster. And then, somebody one day said, "Hey, let's go see what this car can do in the drag strip." And at the time, I think I had this is like the Patriot was like a VF48, external wastegate with carburetor ROM with the anti-lag and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. So this is OG and an OG setup. Yeah. This is. Yep. Okay.
And
300 something horsepower.
What's that?
300 something horsepower.
Yeah,
nothing, nothing crazy.
Yeah, like
the full tilt VF48.
Yep.
340 wheel, 400 torque kind of thing.
Yep.
Right. Yep.
Great rally car.
Well, we took that to the drag strip, and the car went either bottom 11s, bottom 12s, or high 11s. I don't remember what.
That is stupid impressive on a VF.
Yes.
So, and then the bug kind of got bit from there. So from there, I was like, drag racing is a whole lot safer than rally racing. And I don't have to fly all over the country because I can drag race in Florida 12 months out of the year. There's tracks everywhere. And we didn't know anything at that time. Like I said, this is like 2013-ish. We didn't know how to make real big horsepower back then because we really hadn't done it. And when I say real big, I mean real big. I'm not talking 500-600. I mean big power.
No, yeah, big power. Like to hang around in the drag race scene, even in the Subaru community, even though seems nuts. You need 4 digits, and at that time, that was still kind of unheard of. So.
Yeah, well, we started kind of just building that car, the Patriot, little by little from there. I think I went to, I'm trying to remember kind of the progression of turbos, but I went to like a 55, 58 PTE rotated kit kind of thing, like a real small rotated turbo. And that put the car in the 10s. And then we started getting a little bit of attention, like people were kind of paying attention. The car still looked like a rally car at this time.
Yeah. And
then I went to the 64, 66, and this would have been, I guess, 17, 18-ish time frame.
Yep.
And that's right about the time like the Subaru Nationals was kind of really becoming a thing, and there was a class for the 64, 66.
There was a time period between 2014, 2015, and I would say 2019 that the Subaru drag scene was popping off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was huge, and we had a couple of buddies with cars in there that obviously IAG was doing their thing before I was a part of it, and they were helping guys like CJ and whatever, and I think they were helping you guys at one point or something.
Yep.
But yeah, it was going nuts. Records are being set. Competition was hot. It was for a short period of time.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So,
in fact, I think probably the most fun I had, other than our other car, if you guys remember our graffiti car.
Yep, I remember your graffiti car.
The most fun I had with the Patriot was probably the 64, 66, just because there was that class with the Subaru Nationals.
Yep.
And back then we were all running like high 9s with that turbo, and the shit talk on the internet was great.
Oh, it was incredible.
So much fun.
It was incredible. And that's what a lot of people, I miss that. I kind of miss a part of, we have a little bit of that in the Time Attack community, but not anywhere like it was going off then. It was
not like it was
entertaining with a level of respect, Subaru on Subaru violence. You know what I mean? It was like everybody wanted to win. Everybody was super, they were happy to just be competitive. People weren't, don't get me wrong. There was outliers that it turned a really good thing a little sour, but for the most part, everybody in the community was really behind everybody in the community. It was really cool. It was a cool time.
Back during those years, it was a lot of fun because we were all racing. When it came to like Subaru Nationals, everybody talked shit. It was shop against shop. It was, like the 64, 66 class at the time, the fastest cars were like the Patriot, Johnny Qualls' car, Larry Becker.
Yep.
And we all talked shit to each other all year long leading up to Subaru Nationals until we would get to like Texas 2K. And then we were all family.
Well, that's how it works.
Yep.
It's one thing if you're competing with each other. And you get the same thing in the time attack community too. It turns into Subaru versus the world real fast.
Yeah.
Especially when everybody's very fast to outside of Subarus to talk shit about Subarus. And you don't want to hear that. Like, basically, if somebody's talking shit about your competitor, they might as well be talking shit about you. You know, if you guys are butting heads within the community, you know, you're competing within the community. If they're talking shit about somebody else in the community, they're talking shit about you too.
Yeah. So, that was a blast, right? That was a good time. And then, of course, you do something for a little while and you want more, right?
Yep.
So we took the Patriot down, and that's when it really became like a hardcore drag car. That's when I cut the nose off of it, did the full turbo kit with the 7275.
Yep.
Did all the chassis stuff. I think I had the car down for like a solid 6-7 months doing all that. And that's when it went from, I think the fastest I drove the car to with the 6466 was a 9.5 at like 150. And that's when it went from that down to, an 8.6 trapping 170.
Wow.
And 170 mile an hour. Like, I want to put this in perspective. Dead stop to 170 and a quarter mile. All right. And Boogie is a fast car. All right. But what would you say? We're about a half mile. No, I wouldn't say half mile, but I'm not going from a dead stop, and I'm hauling ass compared to everybody else in the class, doing basically 160 at the end of the straight of mid Ohio. That's flying. That is absolutely screaming. And that car is doing that from a freaking dead stop and a quarter. It's still hard to wrap your brain around.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was a lot of fun to do. It was so much fun to go to Texas 2K and have, the camaraderie. Back then we were having 25 Subarus in the stick shift class at Texas 2K. And
yep.
Holy cow.
Yeah, like 5 to somewhere like 5 or 6 of them would be 8-second cars. It would be us, CJ, P&L, English Racing was bringing a car out back then. White Bullet would show up once in a while. It was a hell of a lot of fun. And you go to Texas 2K with a Subaru, you have to know what it is that you're in for, right? You're not going there.
Sure.
You're showing up to the nuclear bomb party with a butter knife.
Yep.
And it's the only way I could put it.
Oh, it's the truth. You're like super stoked about your, 1,000, 1,100 wheel, and that's assuming that you can even use that. You're trying to make passes, you know what I mean? So you might not, and it is very common for double that horsepower to be driving around there. That is like, you're way below the average horsepower of that parking lot.
and the chassis sucks and everything else for doing that. So
it's not designed for it. You know what I mean? At no point did a Subaru engineer go, you know what? Some psychopath down in Florida might put 1,000 wheel through this and try to send it down a drag strip. We should think about that. No.
Yeah, it was a good time though. We'd go there. My goal every year for DRP and the Patriot was, the way Texas does their stuff is the stick shift classes, no rules, anything goes as long as it's a stick, and they break the classes out by qualifying times. And the top 16 is the fastest class. The next, 17 through 32 is the next class, and then 32 through whatever is the next class. And my goal was always to qualify for the fastest class. And my hang my hat up on the peg thing of Texas 2K, since we're retired from that event, is the Patriot qualified for that class all 5 years it went. And I always thought that was really cool.
I think that is cool. That's actually something you can really be proud of, because just making clean passes at some of these events is hard. There's constantly things oiling the track down. All these cars are crazy high strung. How many GTRs exploded the past couple of years? Everybody's there. Everybody's there pushing the limit. So it's hard to just get clean passes, even if your car is fast enough. And so you have to be able to do it when you can do it. I think that's a huge accomplishment. That's something you definitely can be proud of.
Yeah, and some years we went rounds, and I think we made it to the semis one year. With one run away from the that was my goal. That's what we did, and it was a lot of fun. And the camaraderie and stuff when we'd be there. You go to Texas UK with a Subaru. I don't care who builds your motor. You're bringing spare motors if you're running 8s.
Yeah,
and
that's what it is.
Yeah, we'd be there. IAG was supporting us at the time, and Rick and JJ'd be in the pits, and we'd be thrashing, changing motors, and anybody who was around would help. Put hands in. We had other teams are there. Like I remember one year Bader had a problem with one of his motors, and I had just popped a motor, and he needed a cam, and my bad motor had good cams. So as the bad motor's coming out of my car and the good motor's going in, Bader's pulling apart the bad motor to take a cam because JJ let him have it. That's the fun stuff. That's the fun part of those types of events.
Exactly. That's where it like, again, I love this community, and the competition side of the entire Subaru community that I've ever dealt with. As long as you're like I said, the competition side of it, don't get me wrong. There's going to be Subaru on Subaru violence and infighting to a certain degree, but everybody for the most part, especially if you're in an event where it's not just Subarus, it quickly turns into us versus everybody else.
Yeah.
And that is, it's kind of because you're all doing something that shouldn't be done. You're all the same level of kind of ridiculous,
Yeah,
for sure. But that's what
we're all the same kind of retards.
I mean, it is what it is. If we wanted to, we can. Everybody sitting here and anybody listening to this will be the first. Will easily tell you that the correct answer is like an F body or a Fox body Mustang with a turbo LS. It's gonna go rounds, no problem. But what fun is that? You're in it for the lulls, you know what I mean? Like if you win with that, you won. Okay, cool. That's great. But if you win with a Subaru, you're a hero.
So now,
go ahead.
Did I hear this correctly? When the car went down, you went from 150 in a quarter and a 9.5, let's say, and you improved it to an 8.6 at 170. That's a huge improvement on time.
Yeah, it did a lot to the car.
We did, but it also let me back up and I'll clarify a little bit. I don't want to say too many things I don't want to say too much.
Let's not start any. That's not what any of this is about. So.
The car went after we pulled the 64, 66 off, and we put the 72, 75 setup on, and then basically, we took 500 pounds out of the car. We did a lot, right?
Yeah.
It became a full-on, you're not driving it down the road race car. I was still driving the car at the time, and I was going bottom 9, somewhere faster than 950, but certainly not in the 8s. The mile per hour was getting up close to 160-ish at the time. We still kind of had the turbo turned down, just trying to work the car out. And we couldn't, after we got the chassis kind of worked out, we couldn't get the car any faster. The car should have went faster, but it wasn't. And then we made a change. We made 2 changes at the same time with the same person, which was one, I stopped driving. If you've never met me, I am not built like a drag racer.
That takes a certain level of self-awareness and being able to check your pride on something like that, and that is extremely commendable too. I couldn't let somebody else drive Boogie, and that I could put somebody like Tomo in Boogie and he would go faster, but I can't do it.
Well, it also got to a point where I was like, obviously my size, I'm like 6'3", close to 300, right? That's not conducive for drag racing, especially drag racing a small motor car.
Yeah. This ain't Street Outlaws.
No. I also, learned that, I'm pretty scatterbrained, I got ADD, all that kind of stuff. And there's so many things that have to go absolutely perfect to get a Subaru down the track that if you forget or you miss one little step as you're staging the car and you're about to come off that clutch pedal, or even to the point where you do come off that clutch pedal, it's catastrophic and very expensive because the Subaru is not forgiving. You're going to break shit.
Yep.
And that's what was happening. Like I was just continually breaking things. And I was like, you know what? I need to get out of this car. I need to get somebody else to drive it. And we weren't picking up the mile an hour like we wanted to. So we decided to make a change with the tuning on the car. And that's when we put Junior, Junior came on board. Junior started tuning the car, put Junior in the drive the car. And that's when it went from, a bottom 960 mile an hour car to a mid 870 mile an hour car.
Yep.
Wow.
And a lot of that is you have to have the right mindset for that. You know what I mean? The way I've always kind of looked at it is drag racing is very digital. You know what I mean? And being able to repeat what you're doing and going through the process correctly, all of it, every minute little detail matters. And then I look at something like, road course, racing, time attack, turning laps, whatever. It's very analog. Things are in a constant state of change, and it's actually how you adapt to those things tends to work out better for you. So, I get it. You know what I mean? Being able to admit that, like, hey, man, maybe I'm not the right guy to be sitting in the seat, that takes some serious guts, and I applaud you for that.
So, we did that for, 5 years or so, I guess, had a lot of success. And like you said, that's kind of how everybody knows us.
Yep.
The wrap on the car was iconic. Everybody knows it. We were one of the best things about being the back end of all of these big stick shift events that we raced, whether it was Texas 2K, FL 2K, all the big races at Bradenton, all the big money events that we'd been to. If you're if you're 14th, 15th, or 16th, qualifying for the Fast 16, you have a 1 in 3 shot of racing Cletus. First round.
Whoops.
And we raced Cletus more times than I care to admit, but not going to lie, losing the Cletus doesn't hurt.
No.
Because one, we should lose the Cletus, and two, you're instantly in the videos with 1 million views, which was really good for us. Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it from that standpoint, if you would have qualified higher and still unfortunately went out, but you went out to some like mid-pack guy.
Sure.
Just from a marketing standpoint, you're better off getting beat by Cletus.
I actually, I got my guys thought I was a dumbass for this, but right after COVID, Bradenton had an event called the Reunion, and it was basically, we can open the track back up, let's have a race kind of thing. And we qualified for they did the same thing with stick shift. So we qualified for the top class. We won our first round, which was actually against Joel Granis in the Supra. We beat him.
Okay.
Orange Man Bad. Holy
Orange
cow.
Man Bad. Yep. And the American flag beating down Donald Trump. It didn't make sense to me, but it worked. We moved on to round 2, and when I went over and talked to all the guys got together for round 2, because they were just doing chip draws. They weren't doing a ladder.
Yeah.
And Victor, the owner of Bradenton, was there, and it was me and Leroy and Red Demon, Jonathan Atkins, like all the fastest cars. And I'm the retard there.
You had some monsters there. Yeah.
Sure. And Vic's like, well, do we want to do call outs again? And I'm like, hell yeah, I want to call somebody out. And when I tell you, that whole crowd turned and looked at me, they're like, what's wrong with you? I'm like,
because you're the guy there with a butter knife in a machine gun fight.
I'm like,
yes, I'm calling out.
And
that ass.
The driver, or Jonathan Atkins, I think, of the Camaro, was like, we don't do call outs in round 2. I don't think we can do call outs. And I'm like, I'm calling out Cletus. I want Leroy. And Cletus is like, well, hell yeah, we're doing call outs. I want that
hell
Subaru.
Yeah, brother. It was funny. I actually met Garrett before he was Cletus. Yeah. I got invited to, this was the first time the world got introduced to CJ. I was in the same video. The 1320 mini cash days back in 2013.
Right.
I met him when he was just working for Kyle with 1320 video, and dude, he's still the same guy. Like,
he was a Subaru guy.
At all.
People don't know his first real car was a Subaru.
Which is how him and I ended up chatting a whole bunch. It was funny as all hell. Yeah, he's a good dude.
We were at we pulled into Tech, in 2022 at Texas 2K with Jonathan's blue Sonic car.
Yeah.
And he was next to us in Mullet because, they pull two lines in to tack into the building.
Yeah.
And he, comes up, he said, "Hey, Rick, how's it going?" I'm like, "Good, man. Good to see you again." I'm like, "You ready to kick some ass this year?" He said, typical. He said, "Hell yeah, brother." He looked at me and goes, "You ready to change some engines?" I was like, "Oh, man. Come on, leave us alone."
The best. Why you gotta be that guy?
Yeah.
So how did the call out go?
Yeah. Oh, he quickly accepted the
Why
call
wouldn't
out.
he?
And
that seriously, no offense to you, but that gives him a clean path to the next round.
Yeah, like it was 5 7-second cars because there's 6 cars left. 5 7-second cars and the Patriot. So there was a good day for him. And I think Cletus has got a little pull on that track. So when he said yes, they made it happen. And then of course we lost. It was actually we slept at the line real bad. Ran a decent pass. We're in a high 8, but it didn't matter to his 780 or whatever he ran at the time.
Yep.
Car goes 6s now, so it's kind of crazy. But
God bless America. That's a fast car.
That's nuts, man. So let's get on to some of the now. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm excited. I'm really amped about what you're up to. So at some point you went, I'm breaking a lot of stuff. Things are changing a little bit. I don't know if maybe you saw some social media. We were having a good time, ripping around corners and being assholes in grid life. You decided you're going to the track. I like in what you've been working on lately is the 22, and I want to get to that. But where did that jump come from? Is it something you just always wanted to play around with, and you're like, now seems to be the time? Maybe you kind of hit a plateau and you were ready to go, or did something push you that way? Like what brought you in that direction?
Well, I kind of explain it like this, and I've put it this way to a bunch of people, and I want to also say that what I'm about to say is how it happened, but also a big driving factor is my team at the shop wanted this as well. But also, I kind of took stock of things. It's like we were at the time number 4 all time in the history of drag Subarus for stick shift Subarus, which is a pretty respectable place to be. You
cannot complain about that.
No. And the 3 cars above us didn't exist anymore, kind of thing. So it's like we're in a good spot. We had learned what I would say was 80% or 8 out of 10 of everything we could learn about drag racing a Subaru. There was more we could learn. Obviously, there
always is.
Yeah, there's been a few cars that were faster than us, so they knew something we didn't. But it got to the point where it was it's going to cost. I spent $250,000 getting to this point.
Yep.
It's going to take another $250,000 to get to number 1 on this list and think that I know everything 10 out of 10, which I wouldn't. But just as an example, to figure out that last 20% is going to cost the same as the first 80%.
Yeah, the prices go up exponentially.
Yes.
it is not a linear graph in any way. It's the same thing with time attack or any form of racing. That's how that is. You can get 80% for something. It's a tangible number. It's that last 20% where money just starts evaporating.
Evaporating is a good word, and it evaporating quickly. I mean,
yes.
And that was having full support of IAG for my engines, everything. But the money's. Yep. I can tell you right now, I didn't tell a lot of people this, but we went to, just as an example of how expensive things can be in Subaru drag racing, we drove all the way to Atco one year. There was a Subaru test and tune thing.
Sure.
And Junior was driving the car, and on a good pass, something went in the trans, and I never really figured out what happened, because watching the in-car video, he shifts the car correctly, but the car, instead of going to 4th, goes to 2nd.
Yeah.
And when I tell you it broke everything in the car that rotates along the north to south axis, it broke the rear diff, it broke the drive shaft, it broke the trans, it broke the motor, it broke all 4 cams, it broke the crank pulley, the alternator spit its guts out the back of it. So when I tell you I had to build a whole nother car, I had to build a whole nother car.
Wow. Yeah, that's
gross.
That's awful.
The only thing that somebody just asked what was not broken. Surprisingly, the only thing that did not break was my axles. Front and rear axles did not break. Strangely,
well, they were spinning on a different axis.
Different axis, right? So, long story short of that, I'm sitting around, and my guys at the shop, Rob and stuff, we're starting to do some track stuff and get kind of excited about that. And I'm looking at it like, we don't know anything about this. We can start from 0 when I can spend this money, and we can go from 0 to 8 again, like we did in drag racing. And we're going to learn so much, and it's going to benefit my customers so much. Yep. And we're going to meet new people, and we're going to get new customers. And that should be, for business, far more beneficial than going from number 4 to number 1 on some arbitrary list that in the end doesn't matter, because let's be real, nobody is walking in the door of DRP saying, I want to go 8 in a Subaru. They do, but I don't even entertain those. Like, I don't even entertain it. Like, no, I'm not doing it. Like,
a lot of people don't, unfortunately we live in an Instagram society right now, and it's real easy to see a picture or a video of a Subaru doing something amazing. Let's say it's going 8s or whatever, right? And they see this and they're like, wow, that's amazing, I want to do that. But they have no idea what it took to get there. And even if you know the path, it's still going to take almost as much to get there. It's rough. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, you going out and doing some time attack stuff, me doing time attack stuff, I'm learning stuff, and we're developing things that trickle down to the customer, by all means. But even if you do everything identical, there's still things that, the customer is going to have to learn, and things are still going to break, and you're still on the bleeding edge of stuff. And it's rough, and like you said, you broke everything that went north to south in the car, and you don't even have 100%. You don't understand what even caused it, and
right.
There's a million different, how can you fix it if you don't know what even caused it? So like, that's brutal, you know what I mean? And that will happen. It's hard to explain that to people, that it's, I think, as much as, who is it saying this? I think it's Donut Media right now, Donut Media drives me up the wall with their basically anti-Subaru messaging that they've had as of late. But one of their shirts that they released says "Cars are pain."
Yeah,
and it is like it really is, and it's fair. And if you're going to be on the bleeding edge or the pointy end of whatever spear you're trying to be a part of, you're gonna it's hard to do that sort of stuff, And so having some random kid walk in and go, I want to run 8s, I can totally understand why you'd be like, my guy, you aren't ready for that.
No, nobody is, and that's real. Like,
yep, that's real.
I don't. Does it happen? Sure. Are there people who own cars that are not shop owners, that are Subarus, that have gone 8s? Yes, but they have the support of the shops behind them. Nobody's pocketing all of this broken shit on their own. Nobody's going out and racing an 8-second Subaru all year without breaking numerous expensive things like motors and transmissions and drivetrains and everything. Nobody's doing that. I know that. Yep. And one of the big problems is nobody wants to say that. I don't care. Come at me however you want. That's the truth. And,
it is.
So yeah, when that guy walks into the shop and says, "Hey, I want to go 8s in the Subaru," I just tell him no. I'm like, dude, we'll build you, GTR. I'll do whatever you want to do. You can go 8s in, but not that. And I
got a question for you though.
Yeah,
I do got a question for you, and this is for my own. This is more of a personal question, but so what do you see more of? Like, I guarantee the majority of your customers are going to be your typical stage 2 bros up to like a fairly powerful street car. Those are the guys that come in and ask. That's the majority of the bulk of your questions. So let's exclude that customer. Do you have more people coming in saying, I occasionally take my car to the drag strip, or I want to go to the track? Occasionally take my car to the track, or I'm thinking about building a time attack car. What are you getting more of these days?
track by far, and I don't think we're in a kind of an interesting place because we have a road course 45 minutes away and a drag strip 45 minutes away.
That's sick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
By far, it's the track.
Yeah. And I think some of that changed in the past. I'm going to say like 5 years. I think the consumer for a Subaru, like a performance, I think it flipped a lot. And you know, I think it caught some shops even by surprise. Me personally, I think your pivot, just from a financial and a business standpoint, made sense. And I think you are genius in what you were doing with your 22, and we'll get into that. But I think you making that pivot, not saying, hey, we won't help you with whatever drag racing thing you want to do, but more like, we've done that, we're going to try to do this now, and then this knowledge can pass down. You want to be able to help the customer that comes in and says that, and to do that with confidence, you kind of have to do it yourself.
Yep. Well, that's been my thing since day one. I won't do a thing in the shop that we haven't tested ourselves. And there's a big discrepancy in this whole industry, as finicky as Subarus are, and this is where you're going to get me heated, is there are so many shops out there that will say yes to something. No. They have no idea what that means.
I'm so with you. I am so with you. They're so fast to take the money and have no idea what they're doing with it. They'll say yes to anything. And I'm not even going to lie. Like there are good shops that had bad eggs in them that would do the same thing. I'm not going to mention any names. I know Warranty knows exactly who I'm talking about. That will take the money before having any idea where to even go with that, you know? And that's terrifying. And that's why this is why I really like, again, coming back to this, Rick, I really appreciate when you go into something like Track Subies and you're posting, hey man, we're taking the 22 out, we're going to do stuff with it. And then like, hey, even if it goes wrong, you're like, hey, this broke, we're trying to fix it this way. You know, we had a good weekend, we had a bad weekend, whatever. Here's some video. Because you're doing it. You know what I mean? And you're not talking the talk, you're walking the walk, which allows you to talk. And
well, that's the thing, right? Like, I don't... There's a lot of, taking somebody's money and building something that you don't know how to do or that you haven't done before is fine. If the expectation with the customer is like, yo, I don't know, never done this, but I like you, you like me, you want to figure it out?
Right.
Absolutely.
You're always going to have those customers that are kind of close to the shop.
Sure.
That are like, hey man, I want to do this, and you're straight up with them, like, understand you're our development mule. This is going to cost you a lot of money, but we'll do whatever we can to help you out. That's different. That conversation is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the guy comes in, girl comes in, whatever. They bring in their STI and they're like, I want to compete in this class in time attack. Or they don't even know anything about time attack. They're like, I want to go do grid life. They don't even know what that really means. And then this, $50,000 sheet of paper gets handed to them and the person makes a giant down payment and there's no real goal or concept of what's going on because they've never done it themselves.
Or you see even established race cars that get sold or whatever, a few years goes by and you don't see the car, then you see it pop back up and it's in the hands of somebody who has no idea what that is or what it means. And you see a project start and then you never see it finish because because so my progression through the drag racing was like I told you, 12s, 11s, 10s, 9s, 8s. Yeah. And then we started over again with the second car. And that was just we got some shit laying around upstairs. How fast can we go? We set the TD04 record. We went for the VF48 record. We went,
nice.
We went 12.0 or 11.9 with a TD04 in that car.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Then we went 11.1 with the VF48. Then we went 10.3 with the Precision Turbo, stock location turbo.
You might have the TD04 record. I got really damn close way back in the day, back when the before Subaru Nationals and everybody was cool with the Subaru shootout. I ran a 12.4 once, and that was like mind blowing. Yeah,
he was
on a
thrilled.
TD04, and I was losing my shit, and like I was just off the record. So you had to have been right there at that record if you didn't beat it.
And then we went. That car ended up going 970 at 140 something with an FP Black on it, and
crazy.
We learn those things all down the path, and then you think you can just jump into an 8-second Subaru. So the main thing I would say is, even if you have the entire recipe handed to you, like if I sat down with your shop and you've never run an 8-second Subaru, you've never driven an 8-second Subaru, and I laid everything out to you, and Junior laid everything out to you and what he did to drive my car.
Yep.
You can't learn on a Subaru at that level, because the Subaru gets 3 passes at that level and then it's broken.
Yep.
So there is no figuring it out. There is no shops learning that way. There is no driver learning that way. And what ends up happening is the cars disappear.
Yep.
Or they don't ever run the number. It just doesn't happen. And you see these guys dropping massive turbos on these cars, and they go, a high 9 or something? And
well, hold on. You're forgetting the most important part. Massive turbo on the car, all the big plans. You get a really sweet dyno video, okay? You can't forget the dyno video. That's really important. That makes it to Instagram, so everybody gets super hyped up. They're like, we're going to the track in a couple of weeks to see what this thing does. Crickets.
You want to know something funny? And Dewey, your finger's on the pulse pretty good of everything that goes on in this community.
I try.
How much power did Patriot make?
I'm gonna guess you probably on the dyno, like on murder, I bet you guys made a little over 4 digits. I'm gonna say like 1,025.
I have no idea.
Exactly. Okay, and I bet here now I'm gonna guess the fastest time that car ever ran was down from whatever the maximum boost you ran on the dyno was.
No, because we never ran the car on a dyno. That's kind of my point. Like, I don't even know how much power
the car makes. Look at you. That's big dick energy. I'm proud of you, bud.
Like we would set the car up on wastegate. We set the strain gauge up on wastegate and make like 600-700 horsepower. And then it would go to the track. Yep. I will tell you the Patriot never ever, not once, with the big turbo setup on it, made a successful pass on full boost. Everything it did, 8.6 at 170, that was turned down. We never could get the drivetrain to stay under the car. We could never get a pass together. When you go from mid-8s and you're trying to hit a 7, it's a big difference than trying to hit a mid-8.
Yeah.
And everything we were swinging at, the car with to try to run that number, it never once, either it spun or it broke or it got out of control and you had to lift. Like, we never once ever put down a full boost pass in that car.
Really?
Yeah. Even as rowdy as it looked, going down the track, that was all like 50 PSI when the car could have done 60, 65.
Yep.
So yeah, we never really put together that one pass. If it had happened, it would have been a good day.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what it is. I mean, and the same thing's in Time Attack. Like, I got to be real. I've never been able to put Boogie on full kill the way I've always wanted to, and I know if I do, like, my goal, my big goal personally, and I know there's some people who want to see this, is I want to go sub 130 on Gingerman. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I think if we got the thing totally cranked, we can do it. But a lot of other factors have to play into it. Plus, honestly, luck. Let's be real. I got to pray to God something doesn't break in that, minute 30.
I mean, there's so many variables, right? I mean, you could be on that sub 130 pass and somebody gets in your line.
You could be on that sub 130 pass and it just be too hot.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, long story, kind of like, as we were kind of transitioning over to the track stuff, I don't want to say I got burned to the drag racing. I would just say that I accomplished all the goals that we wanted to accomplish.
And that's
I'm very
fair.
proud of what we did.
No, and I don't, to me, it doesn't sound like you got burned. It sounds like you made an intelligent decision to pivot. Yeah. Like you exactly how you said you did, you got the 80%, you know what I mean? And you could help a customer get to wherever they needed. You could put them in the right path if that's the what they wanted to do. You wouldn't build them the 8-second car because, well, you know better, but you could, give them advice or whatever, help prep the car, give them ideas. Well, you could help the customer is what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
if somebody was like, I want to go drag racing with a Subaru, you know what the hell you're talking about.
If somebody wants to go, like if a customer came in, because we've done, I don't know, half a dozen of them. Sure. Customer comes in and says, hey, I want to go high nines at around 150 with a Subaru, and I don't want to put a motor in it at every event. I'm going to tell you, give me your car in 2 months, and we're going to go to the track the first time out, and we're going to do it because it's easy.
Yeah.
And it's easy because I went 860s. So yeah, but again, those customers are still few and far between, right?
Yeah. And especially these days.
Yeah, it's dropped off a lot in the last 2 years, a lot, and a lot of that is because the stick shift class in all these races has gotten so big and so fast that it's almost impossible to be competitive anymore. And when the mid 7-second V8 and 2J cars were still kind of just as unreliable as the Subarus and the Hondas were, it was fun because you could still have a chance to win around because they might brake, they might spin, they might do this, but the clutch technology in those cars is now so good that you really just have no shot. I have a strong feeling that that's why at these big races you're seeing less and less Subarus because it's just.
Well, I mean, it's just I gotta step back and be real about it, And I again, I don't want to harp on drag racing being right. You can have a great time, and I'll be honest.
Oh yeah,
there's not much out there on the planet that can hang with an 11-second Subaru on the street. Okay, so it has its appeal, but like we're talking, trying to run a 7 in a Subaru is just, it's crazy, and there's so few of them that have done it that there's just not the parts development and the development to get you once you get honestly past that 9-second mark, it's the Wild West.
Well, and a lot of people don't realize too, you say 7-second Subaru and yes, there's a few out there that have done it. There's really only one that's done it with a stick shift. Well, there is only one that's done it with a stick shift.
Yeah.
And it did it twice. Mm-hmm. And it hasn't done it ever again. And that's not a knock on them because damn, I wish that one time would have been me.
No, nobody's knocking anybody there. That it was an incredible feat, and they should be applauded for that.
Yes,
and,
absolutely.
I think it's fantastic. But again, if it's Subarus versus Subarus, well, this is awesome. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, if it's Subarus versus, there are just better platforms for it. Going back to a Fox body with a turbo junkyard LS is, that's drag racing. And again, I don't want to bash on it. Our chassis are great for certain things. And other chassis are great for certain things. I got to be real. I have never been beaten or even been in the same ballpark as a Fox body on track. What do you want? Okay. So now let's get back to what you're doing, new stuff. I want to talk about new stuff.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you make this pivot. You're like, okay, I got the people in the shop are going, hey, I'm assuming Robert, I was talking to Robert a lot at this point. He's like, I want to go to the track. I want to do this thing. At that point, I think Grid Life was still doing Grid Life South or pretty close to it at that point before we got ran off by the state police. You got this kind of new budding community. You got a track that's not, I'm assuming Firm is the one you're talking about, right? That's not too far from you. Yeah. So you got Firm near you. I think they're running like a Time Attack series down there, which is super cool. What was the first car you took out there? Because again, you guys work on more than just Subarus. What made you decide I want to do this with a Subaru or whatever? Like, walk me down this path on how you ended up at a 22 and decided to take it to the track.
So we started hitting the Firm and different tracks. Rob was driving his black 05 STI. Is it 05 or the full?
It was a GD. Yeah, it was a GD STI. I forgot who he got it from. He still has it.
It's a sick car, and he was driving that, and we had a couple of customers that were going to the track with him, and we were supporting everybody and just kind of doing the basic HPDE, learning, getting through stuff, and then doing some of the time trial events at the Firm. And then it got to, we started seeing the cars that were faster than Subarus out there, which of course are Corvettes.
Yep.
And we all got hair up our ass, and we all went and bought C6 Z06s.
Yeah.
Which are hands down, like, okay, you ask Rick Wilson, what's the best car, street car, go fast for the money car in the world? R35 GTR, hands down.
Really?
You ask me what's the best track car for the money? C6 Z06.
I will agree with that all day long. And it, like, that for the money, if you want to just go into this and have a nice beaten path to haul ass and destroy all sorts of shit. If like your goal is what's the right way to get to said lap time?
Yep.
Like you're gonna have a hard time beating that. And it's being proven over and over and over in GLTC. And we've all said there's a build for every class you can fit a Corvette in grid life. There is a build that a C6 can win it.
Yep. So
they're fantastic, and it's gross how good those cars are. And I want one really bad, but one day
we were all doing that. We were still running the Subarus. We had customers running the Subarus, and I was like in a funk. Like the Patriot was sitting in the shop. We still had the 7-second GTR. Yep. We hadn't been to a race in a while with either one of them. I had the GTR up for sale, and I think I just recently sold it, in fact. And I was like, you know what? I don't have a fun car right now. Like I was, disenfranchised with the Patriot car, and I didn't have a street car. I just had my F450 I was driving. I was like, I need a fun car. So I started shopping for another street car GTR, just because, like, my favorite car I've ever owned on the street, I had a 2010 GTR full bolt-on car that was a very good looking car, but wasn't a garage queen. And I loved that thing because I could drive the shit out of it. I didn't care. Dirt roads. If I heard a rock bounce off the bumper, I didn't care. Like, I loved that car. It was so much fun. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy another GTR. So I start shopping, and of course Rob's looking at them too for me. And Rob walks back to me. I'm sitting at my desk, and he's like, "Yo, dumbass." Literally in those words. If you know Rob, this is how he talks to me.
Yeah.
He's like, "You're an idiot. Stop looking at GTRs."
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is what I want. He's like, we need to just buy the new 22 WRX. Go order one, like, now. And this was, 6 months before the cars were out, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, fuck, he's right.
Cross shopping a GTR.
When the guy who's a total dick, it ends up being the right guy.
Yeah.
Like, I get this a lot.
So, I called, stopped my GTR shopping and called Subaru and paid in full for a WRX that didn't exist yet. And we waited the 6 months for the WRX to show up. And during that time, we kept racing our Corvettes and racing Rob's black Subaru and having fun, at the track and getting used to it. And then when the 22 showed up, that was, that's where really what lands us here, what we're talking about today, right?
Yep.
That's a heck of a cross shop between a GTR and a new VB WRX.
You gotta look at it. There's a few different ways you need to look at this, though. Okay, so one thing is, and I gotta stress this, lap time isn't everything, especially if you're starting to think about classing.
Sure.
What will this car fit into within a particular class? And two, fast does not equal fun. I can't stress this enough. And some of the most fun I've ever had on track, just like ear-to-ear grinning stupid fun, have been in Subarus. Fairly close to stock Subarus. In fact, your car warranty is that stock STI back in the day was one of the greatest cars to take on track. It was fat. I could get the thing to slide around. It was awesome. And you'd leave the track smiling ear to ear until you came in and realized it was rod knocking. But it was great. I've heard nothing but just great things about the VB on track, which you wouldn't think would be something that would, you're one, it's a WRX and not an STI, and two, it's larger than the VA was. But I haven't got to experience this thing on track, But just driving ours around on the street, you can feel the potential being there.
Yeah. So I did the proper thing when I got the VB. We picked it up from the dealership on a Friday afternoon, and we took it to the racetrack Saturday morning after we finished the proper 1,000-mile break-in on Friday night, right?
Yep.
Outstanding.
Yeah. Yeah, my car lived like I literally launched it out of the dealership with the salesman in the car. It was awesome.
Shit to do.
Yeah. And immediately we went to the firm with the car and got a baseline. We took it out there that day. Everybody in the shop drove the car, and we had a fun day of just competing against each other in a stock car. And we ran. Nice. I think the fastest time we got that day was a 1:29, which I think looking back we would have got a faster time if we'd have just let one person drive the car, but it was too much fun not to.
Yeah. I mean, you got to go beat on it, have a good time.
Yeah. So we did. We beat the hell out of it, got a 1:29 out of it. And then from there, we went to Sebring and beat the hell out of it there stock.
How is that track to drive in real life? Because I've never done it. And it's actually one of my least favorite tracks in like iRacing. How is it in real life? I've heard that. Everybody's like, man, that track is great in real life. And I'm like, it is awful in iRacing. It's the worst. The bumps are terrible in that last corner. Like it's really flat. There's a bunch of blind shit. I don't know, man. I want to go just to say I did it. It's definitely on my bucket list, but it terrifies me.
So the thing about Sebring is when you get there and you look at the front stretch and the tower and the garages, and it's got all the names of the 12-hour winners up there.
That's cool.
And every garage has a name over it. Unser, Andretti.
There's a lot of history there. Like, this is an OG track.
Yeah, you're just like, wow, when you see that right off the rip, you're like, wow, I'm somewhere, right?
Yes. And
then you drive the track, and it's so long, and it's 17 turns that you got to remember, and every single one of them has a different type of concrete, different bumps. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of blind stuff, and there's Bishop's Corner, which, if done correctly, is a flat 130 mile an hour turn, and it is
aggressive.
Yeah, the first time I went through Bishop's in this WRX, pinned to the floor, wide open throttle. Like when I came in, I got out of the car and came into the pits. I was sweating. I was so excited. I was just like I did it. Like you just feel like you accomplished something that you didn't chicken out and lift before that turn. And in the WRX, it's, I think I'm accelerating through 120 miles an hour in that turn.
That's boogieing.
And then, the final turn 17, which is the strangest turn. I've been on racetracks all over the country.
Yep.
And this is the strangest turn that isn't a turn that's actually 4 turns on a dirt road that you'll ever experience in your life. It's pretty wild.
It's not a single radius. It changes multiple times midway through. If the bumps, depending on where you're at, are all different. So you don't really know what the car's going to be like after the bumps, because as digital as you can be as a driver, it's going to feel different. Oh my God. That if there's anything that bugs me is I can't find any consistency in that exact particular corner, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah, well, there's a slow car line and a fast car line in that particular corner. And then what screwed me up a lot in the beginning is I don't have a slow or a fast car.
Yeah. So you try to go in the middle.
Well, like the guy that gives me the most instruction, his name's Brian, and he drives this. He's got the track record for TT2 there. He drives a C706.
Yep.
His line is way outside, and he's going, way faster than I am through that turn. And then, of course, NASA, when you first go there, you have to have instructors. So I have an instructor in the car who drives an E30 BMW, which is way slower than my car.
Yeah.
And he's around the inside on the grass, basically almost on the grass on the inside of that turn. And neither one of those lines work for me. But
yeah.
So just trying to work that out on my own and figure out where it is that I got to be was a really cool challenge. That turn's actually a lot of fun. And mind you, you're braking into that turn from a 3/4 of a mile long straightaway. So, or a half mile long straightaway. You're going really fast. And It's a good time. I really, really enjoy Sebring because of all the nuances of every corner. Everything is kind of like sectioned into there's like 4 different fast sections separated by slow events, if that makes sense. And you kind of, it's kind of like Formula One with the segment racing, right? You got 5 fast corners, and then you've got turn 7, which is second gear. And you got to get everything right to turn 7. Then you get through turn 7 and your brain can kind of reset for the next fast section. And it's really fun. I like it.
That's cool. So you've been doing NASA TT2 class, right?
No,
so
TT4.
TT4. Okay. I got to be real. I am not 100% up on NASA classes, but NASA runs, it's like a power to weight situation. Correct. Am I right? And then
Correct.
do they have like tire modifiers depending on weight also?
Correct. So basically your horsepower is what it is. You put it on a dyno, you get your average horsepower number. That number tells you what class you're in depending on how much your car weighs.
Yep.
And there's modifiers depending on what tires you run. Yeah. So you get you get a bonus if you're on a 200 tire versus a Hoosier, right?
Sure.
You can be lighter on the 200 tire than you can be on the Hoosier with the same horsepower.
Yep.
And then that breaks down into 6 different classes. The car I ran in TT4 all of last year. The car was making like 340 wheel, weighing like 3,700 pounds with me in it. On a 200 tire. I could have gone to a Hoosier because we had to weigh like 37 and we were heavier than that. So I could have afforded the Hoosier, but I really wasn't that good yet. I didn't think, and Hoosiers are expensive and RT660s are not. So we just kept wearing those out.
Yeah.
Now this year we have had to move up to TT3 because the car is a couple 100 pounds lighter and I put a new turbo on it. So it's making a lot more power.
Yeah. We're going to talk about what you're doing to the new thing here soon too. Cause that's got me super interested.
Yeah. So TT4 all last year.
So TT4, so what you did was some basic suspension. You had a set of, RT660s. I'm assuming like 10 and a half inch wheels, something like that. So
yeah.
Okay. And then you did some basic aero. You got, I think it's a 9 lines rear wing, and I don't know if you guys made your front splitter or whatever, which is the way I'd go about it. So you made something, but the car, basic mods, we're talking bolt-ons essentially, right? Bigger front mount intercooler, intake, keep the thing cool. How would it hold up? You were in a stock engine. I didn't hear about you popping the motor. Like, how did it go?
Popped a bunch of them.
Did you really? That's what I like to hear. And I want to make sure there's a caveat to this, okay? If whoever you are following and racing isn't breaking shit, and they're giving you advice and they themselves are not breaking shit, do not trust what they're saying because they're not pushing it hard enough to break shit.
So we ran the car last year, most of the year with basic mods. I wouldn't call my brakes a basic mod because I kind of went from 0 to hero on the brakes.
What did you do for brakes? That's, what? Let's start with that. So 22 WRXs don't have Brembos. At least I think some of the new ones might be getting them, and like the TR. But either way, didn't come with Brembos. Didn't come with Brembos. They actually had kind of basic ye old slidey caliper WRX brakes. What did you do for brakes?
So we started off obviously with the car all stock. We went to the firm the first day. We ran the car stock.
Yep.
We signed up for Sebring, which is probably 2 weeks after that firm day. And it's a brand new car. I didn't think I needed to look at anything, right? It's like the Thursday before we're supposed to leave for Sebring it's probably the Wednesday before. We were going to leave for Sebring on Friday.
Yep.
And we put the car on the rack just to give it a look over before we go to Sebring, and the brake pads are gone. Now, this car now has like 60 miles on it, and it has no brake pads. I had one of the first cars in the country, so there was nobody knew anything about what rotors and stuff fit on these cars. Like it was just an unknown at the time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, fuck, I need brake pads. So I call Subaru. Hey, Subaru, send me some brake pads. And my trusty Subaru guy who loves me because we spend, $50 grand a month at their store on parts said, hey, bud, those aren't available. They don't exist. You got probably 3-month wait.
Yep.
So I'm like,
Oh no.
What? And, this is COVID time, right? Kind of the wrapping up COVID. There were no brake pads. So I was like, what am I going to do? Well, I remembered that IAG was looking at the same problem. And this is when we were all figuring out that the rotors are a different offset.
Yep.
And IAG stuck a spacer behind the rotors and was able to get a Brembo on their car.
Yes, that's how we went about it. Now we caught a lot of heat for not selling that concept, because
the right thing was to not sell that concept.
Exactly. So I just want to make sure that's out there.
But it worked on y'all's car. Y'all
Yes.
got the pictures out there first, and a lot of it, stuff like that's important.
It is.
But at the end of the day, I'm sitting in my office like, well, fuck. IAG just put the Brembos on their car. Where's their pads? So I called Rick Arbogast, and he went and dug your brake pads out of the garbage and overnighted them to me.
Okay, so that's where it went. That was good thought. So Rick hooked it up.
That's how we got the Sebring that weekend, was on IAG's, garbage brake pads.
Yeah.
So we ran.
Those are just OEM shit pads too, right?
Yeah. Just OEM.
My
just
guy,
junk.
Man after my heart. We're throwing trash out there. I love it.
And so we ran the car at Sebring that weekend, which of course smoked those brake pads.
Nah.
And smoked the rotors because I ran them down to nothing. No. I'm sorry. We didn't smoke the rotors, just the pads. So we bring the car back to the shop. I'm like, okay, there's no more brake pads. Now the car's got to sit. It's got 110 miles on it now. My guys got the poking around, because we're a Subaru shop. We all have that storage room full of stuff.
Yep.
And pulled out some calipers off of a 12 or 11 to 14 WRX. Come to find out, they bolt right on the car, and they have a brake pad that's available.
Yes.
So I put 11 to 14 WRX front calipers on the car, got some Hawk brake pads or whatever, Stop Techs or whatever they were, and we got to keep racing the car at the firm.
Yeah.
We ran like that for a while, but that really caused like some weird ABS things going on.
Yep.
And the brake pads still weren't good. And we were still on the stock rotors. So I'm like, okay, I'm on borrowed time till these rotors are shot.
That system, it just isn't enough. This car can make a lot of power, and it's heavy, and those brakes are undersized for that sort of shenanigans. Yeah. I can't wait to. I don't really know what all you went to, so I can't wait to hear this.
Well, that's when I was like, okay, what am I going to do here? I got to figure something out. And this is where I'm in full-on development mode of this car. Like, I am contacting everybody. Yep. Look, I've got the only one of these that's on the track. Let's get some parts made. So I don't remember how the connection was made, but I got the connection. Actually, I think the connection was made from Ken Kozlowski. Yeah, it was. Okay. He set me up with Daniel at Essex Racing.
Well, I mean, there you go.
Yeah.
And they're down in Florida too, aren't they?
No, they're in Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
North Carolina?
They're like by Mooresville, they're in North Carolina. Yeah. Okay, cool.
So I talked to them, and they were like, heck yeah. We'll need your car for a month. So I put the car in a trailer, drove up to Essex Racing, and dropped it off there. And they built the complete Radical, AP Racing brake kit on the 22 WRX front and rear off of my car.
Very nice.
I bet you it's fantastic now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, the brakes are actually too good for the 200 tires. Like, I should have Hoosiers on the car for how good these brakes are, but I'm making it work to my ability anyways.
Let's go. They're too good for RT660s. I bet you were to stick like a AO52 or an RE71 RS on there, I think you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
The RT660s, in my opinion, awesome tire for about a year, and then they changed the compound. And I don't care what anybody says, that compound is not what they were when they first came out. They're not even close.
Yeah, I've just wasted the last set of RT660s. I'm going to waste.
By all means, if you got them, party with them. You know what I mean? Especially if it's more like we're turning laps or developing stuff. I bet you'd be surprised. If it were me in your situation and they allow like a RE71 RS or an AO52 and they still call that 200 treadwear, some organizations don't. But if they consider that 200 treadwear, I would run that over a Hoosier if you can drop weight.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at now. That's what we're figuring out.
My guy. Yeah, you let me know. We can We'll get you. I know all about making 200 treadwear tires do things they shouldn't do.
So, basically I got that brake kit on the car and I've never had to worry about brakes again, which is wonderful. I mean, I have the same front rotors, calipers, and pads on my WRX that if you were to buy a kit for a Z06, it's the same brake. The top hat's different, but the ring, the pad, the rotor, it's all the same. So it's great because I share parts with like everything at the track now. So it's really nice. If I were to need something, it's easy to get.
That's killer, man. Like
Yeah.
I know it uses a very common pad size. I can tell you, just from a personal experience, once you get confidence in your brakes, it becomes way easier to go finding time.
Mm-hmm.
That is if you don't have proper confidence in your brakes, it is the most disconcerting thing to happen to a track car.
Oh, I gotta back up and tell you one disconcerting thing about the brakes on these cars is I did lose brakes on track one time. Complete loss of brakes, which is not fun at all.
Is that why you had to replace the seats?
No. This was before the AP racing kit. I actually was at the firm, and I was fortunate because there is a couple corners at the firm that will bite you if I were to lose brakes.
Yeah.
But I was in one of the corners that didn't. But the 22 WRX has a mechanical vacuum booster on the back of the passenger side head.
Yep.
And mine decided to destroy itself at about 800 miles on the car.
Ooh, what did it just melt?
The plastic impeller just shattered. It's like it looks just like a Subaru oil pump, but it's plastic.
Really?
And it just came out in a million pieces when we took it apart.
Wow.
And I didn't lose brakes, but I lost all power brakes, which when you're not expecting it is the same as losing brakes, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that'd be terrifying.
Was not fun at all.
So is that something that maybe there's going to be an aftermarket fix? Have you guys fixed it, or did you just put the stock one back in and see how long it's going to last?
I tracked down another stock one, put it in, and it hasn't been a problem. So right now I'm chalking it up to a fluke.
Yeah.
It was also post losing a motor. So it could have been one, and it does have oil in it. So it could have been, some shrapnel went through it or something.
Sure.
So I don't think it's anything to be concerned about, but it was concerning at the moment. I can tell you that.
So let's talk about what's going on now. You're moving up in class, and I saw there are all sorts of fun goodies on your car.
Yes.
My understanding is it's on a Motec, and you added port injection, and I'm assuming a larger turbo, and all sorts of goodies. Like, what's going on?
So the Motec was one of the few. So I had Motec on the car before Cobb had an access port.
Okay.
Right after AP Racing, I picked up the car from AP Racing. I drove it straight over to Motec USA and dropped it off with them.
Cool.
And they had the car for a month and a half, putting the Motec in the car because nobody could tune them.
Yeah.
So we put the Motec in the car and then put it on ethanol, put all the good stuff on it, and started going obviously much faster.
Yeah.
Now, the kind of changes for now between last year and now is now it has the STI drivetrain in it, which was a big help.
Yep.
We have the Motec, we have port injection, we were running into fuel starvation problems. I was having to run the car with a full tank. I couldn't, if it got anywhere near half a tank, the thing would starve on the straightaways.
It happens.
So did the Fuel Lab brushless,
surge tank setup for you?
So far, so good. Yeah, the fuel problem's gone. I
absolutely love mine. The problems just go away, and then you stop thinking about fuel.
I'm not a fan of their PWM control strategy because it doesn't make any sense. But
yeah,
because why would your PDM be different than what a Motec can put out or any standalone? That doesn't make sense. But anyways, that's another story.
Sure.
As far as I can run the car down to the gas light comes on now without fuel problems. So that's the goal. We did the port injection. We did that, and I just put on the Art Gennari upgraded turbo that Cosmic Performance has brought to market.
Okay.
And as well as the prototype ish oil baffle from you guys that has so far solved my oil problems, which is nice.
I'm excited to see, again, prototype, and I want everybody in here to understand prototype.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot of thought put into that. I'm really interested to see how that works out, and you're going to be the perfect assessment for that, for what you're doing.
Well, I can tell you this: 100% of the time at the firm on the old setup, I would come down the straightaway into turn one, which is a long, what you would call, I guess, a high G right-hander.
Yep, which is what's killing FA24s and BRZs too.
Right.
And the pickups are the same between these two.
I never had oil problems in under throttle. I only had oil pressure drops off of throttle in the right-hand turn, which is different than the BRZ, but it's still a problem.
Yes.
Interesting.
So I would pile in after about the fourth lap, and it didn't matter what oil, it didn't matter nothing. I've got a custom oil cooler, I've got all the stuff. The fourth hot lap into that turn, and at the time with the power the car was making, I would go into that turn, braking from about 112, brake into that turn down to about 65, turn in, and about halfway through that turn, I would hit the oil pressure safety in the Motec.
Yep.
The last weekend we went out with the Cosmic Turbo, and the speed, the term speed went from 112 to 120. The speed through the corner didn't change. I'm still braking from 120 to 65.
But your entry speed went up because you're making a pile more power now.
Right. So going from
what is the car making by so we're on the same sheet of music?
Made 450 easy enough.
Okay, cool.
We're
talking 100 plus extra horsepower here.
Yeah, it made 450 on the dyno with what we would consider a safe street tune.
Sure.
And then we pulled some timing out of it to, for the track, and I would say it's probably like 425.
Perfect. About 100 horsepower.
Yeah. So braking from 120, going into the same turn, 5, 6, 7 hot laps at the track day to day, never hit an oil pressure safety once.
Nice.
So that is, a huge improvement. If you can, I like to see a sample size greater than 1 day, but so far so good.
I'd be interested to see if you've got traces of both. You know what I mean? If you've got Motec traces of both, it would be cool to overlay those. That would be super cool. Just having that data. But I was really stoked to see that we got that to you, because you're the perfect candidate for it. And I'm really happy to hear that that's working out well for you too.
Yeah,
like if it failed, I have a feeling a lot more guys are going to be tracking these cars.
Yeah, if I was still hitting the safety on day one, then I would say it doesn't work for sure. But seeing it not hitting the safety on day one, I'd say it's very promising. It looks really, really good. But I want to go out a couple more times before I'm
we by no means is anybody saying this is a silver bullet and it's done. I'm just happy to see it. It's promising. Promising is a great way to put it.
Yeah, and I was turning faster lap times, so if it was going to fail, it should have failed.
Cool. So you're up in TT3 now. So TT4, my understanding, wasn't the most competitive class. TT3, my understanding is it's actually a fairly competitive class. How do you think you're going to fare?
So it depends. It depends on where you go. Like if you go to Sebring, TT4 is very competitive.
Yep.
You go to Roebling Roads, TT4 is competitive. You go to the firm, it's not. There's just not TT4 cars.
What kind of cars are you going to be up against? I got to be real. I don't know the class very well. Okay. Yeah. Well, the world's greatest car.
Yeah.
C8s. Yep.
Camaros. I think the event I ran this past weekend was won by a Camaro on, I think he was on 200 terabyte. 200 treadwear tires.
Yep.
Ran like a 114-ish at the firm. I went on my old trusty RT660s from last year. We went 117.
I think you're going to get damn close with a tire change.
Yeah. And it's, to put it in perspective, I don't know. I've been around the firm for like a decade because I used to teach rally school out there. I've been around that place for a long time. Sure. I don't know of another all-wheel drive Subaru that's gone anywhere in the 17s on that track. I'm not going to say that there isn't. I'm just saying I've been around a long time and I don't know of it.
Is that a challenge?
So, yeah, it sure is. So I think the car's in a really good place. I don't think that the WRX the way NASA's structure is set up, the WRX is never going to be a competitive platform in NASA.
It's not set up for Subarus.
No, not at all.
It's set up. It was set up a long time ago as a competitor to the SCCA, and it was based around pony cars and things of that nature, and then Hondas and Miatas. Like that's what it was built for, and so you end up with these oddball cars. You get the same thing in Grid Life, where there's just some stuff just doesn't slot in well.
Well, you got to look at it. If a WRX on 200s versus, we're all-wheel drive. Sure, you think that that's an advantage, but the advantage quickly goes away against a high-power two-wheel drive car when they can have an A7 on.
I agree.
So if everybody's on 200s, that's where the Subaru platform is a great thing. And you can deal with the fact that you're not making 600 horsepower because you can put it all down better than they can anyways. It's not so much we can put it all down, it's that they can't put it all down. But when, you're racing against a vet on A7s, that's just I can put A7s on and I'm at a disadvantage.
Yep.
The Grid Life, rule set's a little different. You put everybody on the same 200, 255 or 265, whatever tire it is. Well, that all-wheel drive now becomes a big advantage when there's no horsepower limits. And you can just...
It does and it doesn't.
Yeah.
And this is where I'm going to... with all-wheel drive, like in my class, all-wheel drive, we were limited to 255s. The two-wheel drive guys get 285s. Okay? And due to... You'd be surprised how fast that evens stuff out. That's the
idea, is it for it to be evened out, right?
Yep, and it does a really good job of it. And there are some like low speed corners that like my car will leave better than a two-wheel drive car will, but there's a lot of high speed corners that just overall grip matters, and then the extra weight and the fact that we are in Subarus and our engines are 42 feet in front of our front axles.
Yeah.
It doesn't help.
No. I would say my biggest problem with all the rules is I wish these guys would all just get together and figure it out and do something that makes sense with each other. Because
they were trying to do that. Did you ever hear of NATA?
Yeah,
that was supposed to be North America Time Attack, and it was supposed to be global Grid Life and SCCA would get together and essentially try to get the rules set semi close to each other. And then it was the year that happened, I swear, the very next year, it was like we got further apart than ever before. And now the rule sets, even though they look really similar, there's some very small nuanced differences that make the classes look drastically different.
Yeah, and there's just some dumb rules too.
There are this stuff that existed from the Red Line Time Attack way back in like 2005 that just doesn't make sense. Like cage gusseting for safety reasons, booting me out of street in GTA.
Well, like NASA, so TT4, 5, and 6 and NASA have some nuances because they're supposed to be slower cars. So they're a little more limited to what you can do to the rest of the car. But TTU 1, 2, and 3 are faster cars. And they don't really give a damn what you do as long as the weight, the horsepower, and the tire are right.
Yeah.
And that opens it up for the enthusiast to have fun with his car and it be easy, right?
Yes.
I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's very easy to wrap your head around. Then I look at, I've been digging in all year into the rules for Grid Life, for Global Time Attack, comparing it to NASA to see what I can and can do with this car to try to run in all three series. And like, I run into things like Global Time Attack. Okay, my car actually fits their street class to the T.
Yep.
Like I could enter their street class right now if I put my headliner back in the car.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you right now, that's one of the dumbest things I've ever read in my life.
I'm not going to lie. Do you have a cage?
Yes.
Does the cage... I felt like they had a thing in there that if the cage got close enough to the headliner, they would allow you to not have to run
take it out.
A-pillars, there's things, right?
Yeah.
And then Grid Life is like, hey, your car's great for street class, but you have to take your wing off.
Well,
And
that's
I'm sorry, but any
street. That's a naming issue too. So you understand.
I understand,
Okay.
but follow
Yeah.
me here.
Yeah.
Any class of racing, in whether it's drag racing or time attack or rally or anything that makes prohibitive rules while at the same time being open to so many weird things like cost, you want to put it on cost or whatever. Every track guy wants a damn wing on his car, right? Because it looks cool for one, and we all know
for the most part,
it's helpful and it's safety, and there's all these things why you'd want a wing on your car.
Yes.
But to tell me that my 2022 WRX cannot enter your class because of my $1,000 9 lives rear wing.
Yep.
And you're going to say absolutely nothing about my $10,000 ECU. Makes no sense.
That's street. I wasn't even in the class at this point, and I lost my freaking mind when they were like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna allow drop knuckles in street." I'm like, that doesn't make any it doesn't make sense in street mod that you're allowing it in street, and then these guys can't run aero. But with that stated, your car is a street mod car. That's what it is, and which is GTA Street, and those classes are actually like the closer in parity, but have some odd nuance differences.
So then I started looking at, and this is just kind of the path that you go down when you really want to get into this, because you have to get into the weeds and figure this out if you ever have any hope of being competitive.
Yes.
So I start looking at the street mod rules. Now, the number one rule about street mod would be the 255 200 TW tire, right?
Yep.
So that's no problem. That's what I run now. But the problem with that is I also like to run NASA.
Yes.
Because there's NASA events all over the place in the South. So why would I not want to run these NASA events?
By all means.
But I can't be competitive in NASA with a 200 TW tire. And I can absolutely put an A7 on my car and change nothing else and still be NASA legal, and my car is going to be 2 seconds faster everywhere I go.
I don't agree with you. This is where I will argue. So now I don't think you're going to be legal with an RT660, or competitive with an RT660. I think it'll blow your freaking mind how close you can get with an RE71 RS or an AO52. The downside is you're going to have to do it in 2 laps. Before the car has to cool down, which it's going to astound you. That is the biggest reason that they outlawed them in GLTC, because they had enough data to prove that an AO52 basically could do Hoosier. It could do Hoosier levels of grip for the first couple of laps, and then it would fall off. And by that time, then the Hoosiers would warm up. But what would happen in GLTC is, since it's a wheel-to-wheel class, those cars that with the street tires would either pull a lead or at least get out in front. And then they were nearly impossible to pass, even though they were a little bit slower than the cars on the Hoosiers. I think you would be very astounded. Now, I'm not telling you what to do, but if I were building your damn car, and if they will allow RE71 RSs or AO52s, I would be running one of those 2 tires, and I would pull the weight, and I think that your net time would be faster.
Yeah, we're gonna try something out. I mean, maybe we'll go. Who knows? Maybe we'll run a Vitor Tempesta P1.
Man! Whoa! You better watch out with that noise right now. That is a touchy subject.
Did I just get canceled on the internet?
Holy! That guy's getting himself canceled.
I know.
Like, man, he is. There's a particular Fortune auto dealer that has a bunch of people mad at him. I'm not going to mention names because I've been told not to, but that guy is becoming that of tires quickly. Like, man, he deleted a bunch of comments, all sorts of stuff. Like, that is ugly. But the reality of it is that tire's going to be real fast. It's gonna fall apart. But if the trophy's in your hand, I don't care if my tires fall apart. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, so we're kind of looking all this over, and basically what it's going to be is at the end of the day, after looking, kind of my point to all this, after looking at all of this, and all of this hinders progress with the car too, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So at the end of the day, my decision has basically been I'm going to continue to develop the car however the hell I want and just upclass the car.
Wherever it lands is where it lands.
Yeah, if I am track mod and I'm the last guy in track mod, I don't give a damn. I'm developing the car. So it is what it is.
I had a talk with somebody a while back about this, how I truly believe street modified in grid life is the most insulated class. And the reason for that is you can't just throw absolute tons of money at it and show up and expect to win, because it doesn't work that way. You can't just buy the right car and, just throw cubic dollars at it and expect to win, because there's so many strange little nuances of how to get these tires to work, things like that guys who have tried that, we've had a McLaren show up. There's still an AMG GT in the class, serious money cars that have had mixed results, let's put it that way. And then a 90 shitbox goes on to win the thing. And then so you have two different directions. You have, say, something like Street GT, which is dominated by like C6 vets right now, because there's almost no prep you do to that. You throw on some tires, maybe a little bit of cooling and some brake pads, and you can go out there and win with that car. And if you're a good driver, like almost no prep. Or the other way around, if you want to go win unlimited, you have to have a car like Ferris, with metric shit tons of cash. But if you have metric shit tons of cash and you got the money to do it, and this is not taking anything away from Ferris. It takes talent to drive something that crazy. Don't get me wrong, but there's only a few guys out there and who are able to do that. And I believe that the path is easier to get to the top with that. And you could just keep throwing money at it until you're there, because the rule set's so wide open that sooner or later you're just going to spend and engineer your way into having a fast car, even if you can't drive. In street mod, you've got to prep the car specifically for street mod, and you have to be an extraordinarily good driver, and you have to have your shit together to win it. It's insulated from both directions. Like, plus you need a decent amount of money for it. You can't, there's really not the only other class that seems to kind of fit with street mod is the Optimus Street Tire Challenge. That we see some of those guys come over, and even then, those are some really fast cars. We're talking their top level guys will come out and try to run street mod. Ryan Matthews being one of them. Amazing driver, great guy. Runs a C5 Corvette. Imagine that. And he has a rough time. And he's an insanely good driver. And it's just because that class is super insulated from both directions. If you want to win street mod, you got to build for street mod. It's kind of what I'm getting at. And I don't know if it's good or bad for the class, but we have plenty of guys out there. I mean, what did we have? 80 different competitors last year, Warranty? Or what was our average class size?
Average class size was 76.
76. That's a shitload of cars, my guy.
A lot of cars.
Yeah. And for a class that's that insulated, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's coming from like the stick shift racing world of drag racing, which basically the Wild West. As long as the thing had a shifter in it, you could do whatever you wanted. I love that kind of racing. Like, I didn't care that I was showing up there with a Subaru, and when we weren't at a race, it allowed me to be as creative as I wanted to that car. I didn't have to worry about a rule book. Yep. And that's what's like, you have to weigh, okay, there's 4 different, sanctioning bodies here that all have their own yearbook or rule books. Am I trying to win one of those classes, or am I trying to develop a platform for the community and learn all I can about this car? Well,
and where you're sitting, so there's advantages and disadvantages to class racing. Okay. The thing, I look at it like a sandbox. Okay. And how big is your sandbox? There's advantages to smaller sandboxes, because then you have the ability to use most of the sandbox, and you get inventive on using the stuff within the sandbox. It starts making you read the rule book a little differently. But the disadvantage to that is there are hard walls of the sandbox. And if you're just trying to develop something cool, I got to be honest, like something like Grid Life Track Mod or Global Time Attack Limited or maybe the Unlimited classes are more what you want to do. The unfortunate problem with that, and the thing that, you know, smaller sandboxes tend to prevent, is cubic dollars is going to prevail in the end.
Sure. And that's fine. Like you have to go into those things without the ego. Like if I wanted to win, you know, one of those events with the platform that I know really well, and I just wanted to spend a bunch of money and go win, I'd just build a GTR.
Yep.
But you know, that's not the goal. The goal is to see how good we can do with this car and what we can develop for this car and what we can turn this car into. And it's really been a lot of fun figuring that out. You know, we didn't touch on it yet, but I've gone through a few motors in this car, and I've found weak points in this motor that nobody even knows yet.
Yep.
Because I haven't put out the information, or we haven't, you know,
That's
DRP
the way.
hasn't put
First
out the information.
mover.
Yep.
And when customers get to the level that we're at with this car and trying to do the things that we're doing with this car, then, you know, I'll make that information available or I'll help them out. But it's kind of interesting because there's also like a blanket responsibility to it too. Because if I were just to post some of the shit I know right now, it turns into mass hysteria and everybody freaks out.
Oh yeah. Like I don't
like oil in your pickup.
Yes.
Nobody cares. It's not a problem.
RTV in your pickup, like people are finding little specks of RTV in the pickup and like acting like, oh my God, my engine's getting 8. No, don't get me wrong. There were some cases that were really bad, but like small little pieces of RTV in your pickup are not killing your bearings. And
have been in FA pickups since 2014.
Yes.
So, you know, it's, and like in the FA24 BRZ is the same way. You're hearing, you know, the internet's all on fire that they can't go track their cars are going to blow up. I've spent the entire last year at tracks 1 to 2 weekends a month watching those BRZs get the crap beat out of them regularly on slicks without problem.
Yeah,
but you don't hear that.
No, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there isn't improvements to be made.
Agreed.
But I agree with you. It is mass hysteria. And even what you can do is have conversations with those that are doing it correctly. They're not popping every damn motor every time they go out, because look at the GR86 Cup cars.
Yep.
They're using that engine. All they had to do was ask some of those guys, how are you keeping these together? And they would go, overfill your oil pan by an extra quart and run a little bit thicker oil, and we've been fine.
Yep. Now, that doesn't mean they won't have a problem. And it doesn't mean that there aren't cars that have blown up. But also, another thing that it causes too, and that's where the responsibility of the shops comes into play, to not like cause these problems. Subarus are going to blow up just because they're Subarus.
Yeah, Subaru's gonna Subaru.
And when you have something out there in the back of people's heads, like the oil pressure problems in the BRZ or the silicone in the pickup tubes, a Subaru just bees a Subaru and has to go in for a motor, and silicone in the pickup tube is now the blame for all of them.
Yes.
I can tell you that
track cars in general blow up, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
everything blows up.
Everything blows up, and especially when you talk smaller displacement things, they definitely blow up. I mean, I literally sat and watched a 230 horsepower Honda put 3 engines in at the track. Like, a 230 horsepower, you know, GLTC car, top level GLTC car, put 3 engines in a weekend.
Yeah. Yep. And if you actually get out there and get to a track and don't just read Facebook, you'll learn these things. And that's kind of what I tell people.
Exactly.
Like you've got to get out and see the stuff for yourself and see what's happening. We went to Barber like 4 or 5 months ago, had a blast.
Barber, great.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah.
It's such a great track.
And we pitted next to a team that had 4 BRZs, new ones, all wrapped in like very professional team, high dollar. I don't know what exactly they were doing, but they were running in time trials.
Okay.
And they had like 18 events on all 4 of those cars and without a problem. And they're, you know, I'm talking to them and they're like, yeah, I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Well, it's the same thing with my BRZ, my FA20. I've been told that thing's going to be trashed. I should have blown it up like 6 times by now. And I'm at, what am I, almost 5 years in with that damn car. I've loaned it to people for the weekend, we have hot lapped that
my
thing
gosh.
for an entire weekend. And I'm talking like run a 20-minute session, hop out, run another 20-minute session right after it, hop out, immediately throw me in the car because I blew my other car up and I want to go have fun, run another 20-minute session in it.
Yep.
And all weekend, no oil change, nothing. All we did was put fuel in it and just hot lap the shit out of it. We've done that non-stop. A lot of it comes down to make sure you got a good tune, run good oil, understand where your temps need to be. You know, just do the basics and the car will hold together. Understand your engine like the new BRZs. Do a little bit of an overfill, run a little bit thicker oil. You're probably going to be fine.
Yep. Imagine that.
Imagine that.
But bro, I read on
Hysteria.
Facebook that it's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, Facebook knows everything.
Yeah.
Well, man,
That's one of the
this
things
has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I got to be real. We're quickly coming up on 2 hours here, and I got to cut it at some point.
Mhm.
I want to do this again. You're a lot of fun. I want to keep up on development of your 22. So next time, instead of it being like a history lesson, I want to talk more about how you know NASA stuff's going with the 22, how development's going, what problems you're running into. I think this will be good, and we'll, you know, then we can share these podcasts over on in the Facebook groups and hopefully educate these people into doing cool things and not stancing their cars, and you know, have a good time with it. This has been a lot of fun though. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come over here.
No, man, thanks for inviting me on. I'll do it anytime. I love doing things like this. I love, you know, being able to reach out to the community and try to put out a little bit of, you know, knowledge. It's not the right word because I'm not the smart guy, right? But just experience and let people know that, you know, there's a right way and wrong way to do this stuff. And if you do it right, it's a hell of a lot of fun, man.
It can be. And one of the things that I have to say that Subarus do extremely well, and for all their faults, they are a complete riot to do performance stuff with.
Yep.
If the time itself, oh, I almost lost you guys. If the time itself is not the most important thing to you, it's having fun, you're going to have a very hard time finding a better car.
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree.
Cool. This, like I said, this has been a riot. Let's definitely do this again. Thanks for being on, dude. Warranty, you got anything?
I'm good.
All right. Sweet, man. Well, it's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun. We're going to catch you guys next week. Thanks again to Rick for being on, and we will we'll see you next week. It'll be a good time. See you guys.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.